She never missed a Sunday service, not once, in over a decade. But on one night, in a quiet town, a church door was left wide open. And the volunteer who everyone trusted vanished without a trace. What happened inside that church? And what waits in the shadows beneath the sanctuary? This is the story of Lydia Gray, and the secret that no one should have seen. You can usually tell when something is wrong in a small town, long before anyone says a word. Sometimes it's the way the wind hits the street signs differently. Sometimes it's the way a house light flickers at an hour it never does, and sometimes it's the silence. Red Hollow was the kind of town where nothing happened loudly when the clock in the bell tower struck 1:12 a.m., and no one heard the familiar echo rolling over the houses. It wasn't just strange, it was unnatural. The church bells never miss a chime, just like Lydia Gray never missed a service. But on that night, both did. The first 911 call came from an elderly choir member named Mrs. Harland. Her voice trembled as she tried to explain what she found. I don't know how else to say it. The church door is open. Wide open. And Lydia's car is here, but she's not. The dispatcher asked if Lydia might be inside, maybe preparing early for the Sunday morning service, but Mrs. Harland interrupted him. No. I've been calling her name. I checked every pew. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Red Hollow had never been a place where intuition meant more than logic, but everyone trusted Mrs. Harland's intuition almost as much as they trusted Lydia's routine. When the first patrol car pulled up, the headlights washed over the small brick chapel like a spotlight on an abandoned stage. The building stood there, motionless, cold, and somehow expectant. The tall stained glass windows reflected nothing but darkness. Officer Mark Dunley stepped out of his vehicle and immediately felt the air shift. There was a stillness that didn't belong to a quiet night. It felt paused, waiting. He called out, "Lydia? You here?" No response. He stepped closer. The side door, Lydia's door, hung open as if someone had yanked it and then dropped it mid-motion. The hinge creaked softly in the breeze. "That's not right," Dunley murmured to himself. Lydia never left a door open. She didn't even let the screen door at home close too loudly. He pushed the church door fully open and took a cautious step inside. The interior was swallowed by darkness, not the simple absence of light, but something heavier, deeper, like the building held its breath. He flicked on his flashlight. The beam sliced through the dark and landed on the center aisle. There, lying neatly as if placed on display, was a single Bible, opened to a passage. He stepped closer and angled the light. John 13 verse 27. "What you are about to do, do quickly." The verse about betrayal. A chill crawled up his spine. Who leaves a Bible open to a verse about betrayal at 1 in the morning, in an empty church, after disappearing? He radioed in for backup. Within minutes, a second patrol car arrived. Officer Rena Paulson, younger but sharper-eyed than most, quickly took in the scene. "Where's Lydia?" she asked. "That's what we're figuring out," Dunley replied. "Her car is outside. Keys in the ignition. Door wide open. Purse still inside." Rena frowned. She'd never leave her purse. Exactly. They moved deeper into the chapel, the wooden floor groaning under each step. Dust floated lazily through their flashlight beams, disturbed for the first time in hours. Everything inside was intact. No broken windows, no overturned chairs. Nothing screamed of a struggle. But sometimes, the loudest warning is the absence of one. They checked the office, the classrooms, the choir room. Empty. When they reached the back hall, Officer Paulson stopped suddenly. "Do you hear that?" Dunley stopped. Listened. There was a faint sound, a soft clicking, like something metal tapping rhythmically. They followed it to the fellowship hall. Nothing. Then to the storage corridor. Still nothing. But the clicking continued steady, unchanging, almost like a metronome. Rena pressed her ear against a narrow staff-only door. "It's coming from inside." The door was locked. Odd, every internal church door was usually left unlocked unless there was a specific reason. She rattled the knob. Maintenance closet maybe? Dunley checked Lydia's key ring. She always kept a spare set hidden in the top drawer of the church office. They had retrieved it earlier. He found the one labeled lower hall. With a hesitant breath, he turned it in the lock. The clicking stopped instantly. There was nothing menacing inside the small room, just shelves lined with cleaning supplies, old hymnals, and a rusted mop bucket. But on the floor lay another Bible, yet positioned so perfectly at the center of the room that it couldn't have been an accident. What was making the sound? Rena whispered. Dunley nudged the mop bucket. It wobbled slightly but made no noise. He checked the shelves, no loose objects. Maybe something fell? Rena suggested, but neither of them believed that. Lydia was precise, borderline obsessive. If something fell, she would have put it back immediately. But then something caught Dunley's attention. A small indentation on one of the shelves, perfectly circular, like something had been resting there for a long time and was now missing. "What used to be here?" he murmured. Rena scanned the rest of the shelf. Whatever it was, she removed it recently. Then Dunley lifted the closed Bible. The underside was dusty, as if it had been placed there only moments before they arrived. "Someone else was here," he said quietly. The two officers exchanged a look. Was Lydia still inside the church? Was she hiding? Or had someone taken her and left these strange breadcrumbs for a reason no one could yet understand? Before they could decide, a loud thud echoed through the chapel. Not from the hallways they'd already searched, but from the sanctuary, the large main room they'd first entered. Rena's hand shot to her holster. "You hear that?" "Yeah." Another thud. Then a scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged across wood. They moved back toward the sanctuary, flashlights trembling slightly in their hands. But when they stepped inside, everything was exactly as before. The pews, the open Bible, the silence. "What the hell?" Dunley whispered, and then they saw it. On the altar, something new had appeared. A small white envelope. It hadn't been there 10 minutes ago. It was addressed in careful handwriting, "For whoever comes looking." Rena's voice dropped to a whisper. "Mark, this wasn't here before. Someone is inside this church." Dunley reached for the envelope, but the second his fingers touched it, a faint, unmistakable sound echoed from somewhere deep within the building. A woman's voice, calling for help, and it sounded exactly like Lydia Gray. The moment Lydia's voice echoed through the church, both officers froze. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't even loud. It was a strained, shaky whisper carried from somewhere deep within the hollow ribs of the building, like it had been trapped in the walls and forced its way out. "Help please, someone." Officer Rena Paulson reacted first, swinging her flashlight toward the choir loft. "Lydia?" she called, urgency cracking her voice. No answer. Just the same eerie stillness returning like a curtain falling over the room. Dunley tightened his grip on the envelope in his hand but didn't open it. Not yet. "We need to follow that voice," he said. Rena nodded and immediately started scanning the sanctuary, directing her light toward the rafters, the pulpit, the side corridors. Another sound followed, faint, muffled, like someone struggling to breathe through fabric. Rena whispered, "That didn't come from the sanctuary." "No," Dunley agreed. "It came from under it." They both stared toward the front of the church, where the wooden boards beneath the altar blended seamlessly into the floor, except for one detail nearly impossible to see unless you were looking for it. A thin, almost invisible seam, a square cut into the floorboards. A trapdoor. Not on any blueprint. Not mentioned by any staff. Not something Lydia would ever casually hide. "Did you know about that?" Dunley asked. Rena shook her head. "I've been coming here since I was a kid. There's no basement under the sanctuary." "Clearly there is." They approached it slowly, as though expecting it to snap open on its own. The floorboard edges were smooth, sanded down intentionally. Someone had put effort into making this hatch blend in. Too much effort. Rena crouched and brushed her hand over the seam. "This wood isn't old. It's newer than the rest of the floor." "Meaning someone installed it recently," Dunley said. "Or someone uncovered it." She slipped a fingernail into the seam and tried to pry it up. It didn't move. Dunley set down the envelope and gripped the edges with both hands, straining. Still nothing. Then Rena noticed something. Just to the right of the altar, partially hidden in shadow, was a small brass ring recessed into the floor. A pull handle. Dunley grabbed it and tugged. The hatch released with a long, low sigh, like the church exhaled a secret it never wanted to share. A cold draft drifted upward, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something older, something metallic. Blood? Rust? It was impossible to tell. Rena clicked on her shoulder radio. "Dispatch, we've located what appears to be a concealed entry point beneath the sanctuary. Unknown depth. Requesting backup and..." Her radio crackled violently, cutting her off. Static swallowed her words. She tried again. Only static. "Something's blocking the signal," she muttered. Dunley angled his flashlight into the dark opening. A narrow wooden staircase descended into the earth, disappearing after only a few steps. The wooden railing was scarred with deep scratches, as if someone had clawed at it, or gripped it during a panic. Rena swallowed hard. That voice came from down there. One more whisper rose from below, fragile enough to sound like it might shatter midair. "Please, don't leave." The officers exchanged a look, and without another word, they descended. The stairs groaned at every step, their weight threatening to split the aging boards. The air grew colder, wetter, and far more suffocating with every foot they traveled downward. It felt less like a basement and more like they were entering the buried heart of something that wanted to stay hidden. At the bottom was a narrow corridor made of clay-packed walls, some areas reinforced with rotting planks. Moisture trickled down in thin lines. Their flashlights revealed deep gouges etched into the soil walls, fingernail marks, long and uneven. "Oh God," Rena whispered. "Someone's been down here a while." They advanced further, following the corridor as it curved sharply to the right. "Lydia!" Dunley called. "If you can hear us, say something." A faint tapping answered. 3 taps. Slow, deliberate. Rena shivered. "That's coming from ahead." As they rounded the bend, the corridor opened into a small chamber. A rusted water heater stood in one corner. Cardboard boxes, soaked and collapsing, lined another. But the real horror sat along the far wall. A metal door, thick, with a sliding slot at eye level. It looked like it belonged in a bunker or a cell. Rena approached slowly, her hand hovering near her firearm. "Who puts a door like this under a church?" Dunley moved beside her and slid open the viewing slot. Darkness stared back. "Lydia," he called. Silence. He lifted his flashlight and aimed it through the opening. At first, the light hit nothing but empty space. Then, movement. A shadow shifting in the corner. Something was inside. Someone. "Back up," Dunley whispered. Rena stepped aside as he tried the handle. It didn't budge. But Dunley shone the flashlight again. This time, he saw something clearly. A hand, pale and trembling, rising slowly into view. "Mark, open the door," Rena demanded. "It's locked, I need a..." The hand pressed against the metal from the inside. Then a voice, unmistakably Lydia's, rasped through the slot. "He's still here." Rena's blood ran cold. "Who's still here, Lydia? Who's with you?" Lydia didn't answer. Instead, her breathing became rapid, almost frantic. The sound of her scrambling backward echoed through the cell. "Lydia, talk to us." Dunley pressed. A moment of silence. Then Lydia whispered, "Get out before he comes back." Rena stiffened. "Who, Lydia? Who's coming back?" Another whisper, this one cracked by fear. "The one who took me isn't done." Dunley pounded on the metal with his fist. "Lydia, listen, we're going to get you out. Just stay calm." And a new noise cut him off. A long, dragging scrape coming from behind them, up the corridor they just walked through. Something, or someone, had just entered the underground passage. Rena aimed her flashlight back toward the bend. "Mark, we're not alone down here." The scraping grew closer, deliberate, slow, as if whatever was approaching wanted them to hear it coming. Dunley's voice tightened. "We need to move. Now." But Lydia's voice whispered desperately through the slot. "Don't leave me. Please don't leave me again." Rena turned between Lydia's cell and the dark corridor. The scraping stopped. Silence swallowed the tunnels again. Then, from the darkness came a sound they were not prepared for, a quiet, low chuckle. Not Lydia's. Not anything humanly warm. A man's voice, drifting through the corridor like smoke. "You shouldn't have come down here." Rena's flashlight flickered. Dunley reached for his weapon, and from the darkness, a shadow began to step forward. The figure emerging from the darkness moved with a slowness that didn't feel cautious. It felt intentional, like whoever, or whatever, was down there wanted to savor every second of being seen. Officer Rena Paulson's flashlight sputtered twice before catching a weak, trembling beam. She raised her weapon. "Police," she shouted. "Show yourself and keep your hands where we can see them." The shadow didn't respond, didn't pause, didn't retreat. Instead, it continued forward with soft, deliberate footsteps that echoed unervingly off the dirt-packed walls. Dunley stepped in front of Rena, keeping his own weapon trained on the corridor. "Stop right there." Still no answer. Still no visible face, just the slow, unhurried approach. Inside the cell, Lydia let out a quiet, broken sob. "He's here," Rena swallowed hard. "Lydia, stay back from the door." A cold draft swept down the corridor, extinguishing the thin thread of warmth in the air. There was a faint chemical smell too, metallic, sharp like old tools. The kind used for cutting through pipes, or something far less innocent. The approaching figure finally stepped into the reach of their flashlights. And the officers froze. It wasn't a stranger. It was Andrew Bell, the quiet, recently divorced man who attended the church sporadically, the one Lydia had been tracking in her hidden notebooks. But something about him was terribly wrong. His shirt was damp with sweat, smeared with dirt, and streaked with something darker. His eyes were wide, unblinking, pupils too large. His breathing was uneven, bordering on frantic, yet his steps were slow and controlled. Rena whispered, "Andrew, what are you doing down here?" He didn't blink, didn't speak. He just stared at them, face pale, jaw clenched, as if holding back some storm inside him. Dunley kept his voice steady. "Andrew, put your hands where we can see them." Andrew didn't move his arms, but his gaze shifted to the metal door containing Lydia, and a smile crept onto his face. Twitching, wrong. A smile that didn't belong on a sane man. "She's not supposed to have visitors," he finally said. His voice was soft, breathy, almost childlike. Then he tilted his head, examining the officers with unsettling curiosity. "You shouldn't be here. You're ruining everything." Rena tightened her grip. "Andrew, step back or we will use force." His smile widened, exposing teeth pressed too tightly together. "I don't think you will." Dunley took a measured step forward. "Andrew, move away from the corridor. You're scaring a lot of people. Let's talk and—" "I'm not scared," Andrew whispered sharply. "But she is." He pointed toward the cell without breaking eye contact with the officers. Lydia whimpered inside. "Andrew, what have you done to her?" Rena demanded. He blinked once, slowly. Then the smile vanished altogether. "She knows too much." Dunley's stomach dropped. "About what?" Andrew didn't answer. Instead, he turned his head slightly, as if listening to something behind him, something neither officer could hear. A strange tension filled the corridor, like the air was thickening. Then Andrew's expression shifted into something wide and unnatural. A grin, far too wide. "She wasn't the first," he whispered. The chill that crawled up Rena's spine felt like ice water. "What do you mean?" she pressed. "Where are the others?" Andrew tilted his head again. This time, he whispered to someone beyond the officers. "She asked the same question." Rena looked at Dunley. Dunley looked at the shadowy corridor behind Andrew. There was no one else there. Unless Andrew was hearing something they couldn't. Or someone. Something. Rena steadied her breathing. "Andrew, step away from the corridor and turn around." But Andrew suddenly dropped to his knees, hands clasped together as though in prayer. "I know you're angry," he whispered, again not at the officers. "I know. I tried. I really tried to keep it under control." He pressed his forehead to the dirt-packed floor. Then he whispered a phrase that made both officers' blood go cold. "He's awake again." Dunley muttered, Who's awake? Andrew didn't respond. Instead, he began rocking back and forth, slowly, rhythmically, muttering something under his breath. The words were too soft to decipher, but the cadence was unnerving, almost ritualistic. Rena whispered to Dunley, "He's unstable. We need to detain him before he hurts himself or Lydia." Dunley nodded and stepped forward. "Andrew," he said firmly, "I'm going to place you under." Andrew's head snapped upward. His eyes were different, wide, glassy, filled with something unreadable. Then he lunged. Rena screamed, flashlight flying from her hand. Dunley grappled with Andrew, both men crashing into the narrow corridor wall. Dirt rained down around them as Andrew clawed wildly, his strength far greater than expected. "Get him, Thuff!" Dunley shouted, struggling to pin Andrew down. Rena grabbed Dunley's shoulder, helping force Andrew against the wall, but the man fought like something feral had taken over him. Lydia screamed from inside the cell, banging desperately on the door. "Stop! Stop! He's not alone!" Rena froze. "What do you mean he's not?" Andrew suddenly stopped fighting. His body went rigid. His eyes rolled upward, showing only the whites. And then, in a trembling voice that seemed layered, almost as if two voices spoke through him, he whispered, "He's here." Every hair on Rena's neck stood up. Dunley turned his head sharply toward the corridor behind them, and he saw it. A shadow, long, rippling, unnaturally thin, sliding along the wall behind Andrew. Not cast by any light. Not cast by any person. It moved on its own, as if watching them, as if choosing. Dunley whispered, "Rena, do you see that?" Rena backed up, eyes wide. "What is that?" The shadow paused, twitched, tilted, like it was cocking its head. Then, in a movement that defied logic and made Rena's breath catch in her throat, the shadow separated from the wall, detached, and began to stretch upward, forming something tall, wrong, and impossibly thin. Andrew's voice trembled, both terrified and reverent. He woke up when she saw the room. Rena grabbed Dunley's arm. "Mark, we need to get out of here right now." But the creature's shape solidified, its elongated limbs reaching the ceiling, its head bent impossibly sideways like it was studying them. And then it took a step forward. The dirt floor shook. Lydia screamed. Andrew laughed and sobbed at the same time. Rena raised her weapon, but her hand trembled violently. The creature leaned closer and whispered, "One more." The lights flickered. Dunley shouted, "Rena, run!" But the exit behind them, the staircase leading up, filled with darkness as something else blocked the way. The darkness at the top of the staircase wasn't natural. It looked thick, almost tangible, like ink poured over the steps. Officer Rena Paulson's breath hitched. "That wasn't there before," she whispered, voice barely holding steady. It wasn't just the absence of light. This felt like a presence. Something filling the exit. Something watching. Behind them, the towering shadow creature shifted its elongated form, its limbs making a faint cracking sound as though the very act of existing in this space strained the walls. Andrew Bell lay crumpled where he had fallen, trembling violently. His whispered words came out fractured. "He opened the door. I told him not to look inside." Rena pulled Dunley back by the arm. "We're boxed in, Mark, we have to think." But Dunley's eyes were fixed on the creature. He wasn't blinking, barely breathing. Whatever stood before them defied the rules their minds relied on. Rules about shape, shadow, gravity. Its body flickered like it was stitched from broken reflections of darkness. And yet, its presence felt solid, heavy, intentional. The creature lifted its head. There was no face, only a hollow indentation where features should be. Yet the officers felt unmistakably seen. A deep pressure filled the corridor, like the atmospheric drop before a violent storm. Rena forced her voice out. "Stay behind me." "No," Dunley said quietly. "We stay together." The creature stepped forward. Its foot, or something resembling a foot, sank into the dirt floor with a wet, sucking sound. The ground quivered as though rejecting its weight. Lydia shrieked from behind the metal door. "Don't let it take you." Don't let it choose you. Rena shouted back. Lydia, what is it? But Lydia only sobbed hysterically, repeating, Close the door. Close the door. Rena turned. What door? Lydia's voice broke. The room they opened, the room behind the wall, he wasn't supposed to see what was inside. That thing was locked for a reason. Dunley looked at Andrew. What room is she talking about? Andrew's eyes opened, wild, glassy, unfocused. The old room, the one behind the maintenance closet. His voice dropped to a whisper. The door she found wasn't a storage room. That door was the first seal. Rena's stomach turned cold. Seal for what? For him. Andrew's trembling hand pointed directly at the creature. A groan, low, ancient, vibrated through the corridor as the creature crouched, its limbs folding in unnatural angles. Like it was preparing to charge. Dunley raised his weapon. Stop right there. The creature didn't stop. But it didn't rush forward either. It simply tilted its head, and the wall beside it began to bend. Not break, not crack, bend, as if the creature's presence alone distorted the shape of the earth. Rena's heart pounded against her ribs. Mark, we can't fight this with guns. Dunley whispered, we don't need to beat it. We just need to outthink it. Then please, think faster. The creature took another step. Rena backed up. Her heel brushed something hard. She stumbled and looked down. The envelope they'd found upstairs. The one left on the altar. Addressed, for whoever comes looking. It had fallen by the trapdoor. She grabbed it instinctively. Mark, the note, maybe it tells us what Lydia couldn't. Open it. Her fingers tore at the flap. Inside was a single folded sheet. Nothing else. She unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakably Lydia's, sharp, clean strokes, written in haste but with purpose. It read only 3 words, don't look back. Rena blinked. What the hell does this mean? Dunley didn't answer, because behind them, the creature let out a low, resonant sound. Not a screech, not a growl, but something like a voice emerging through layers of grinding stone. It spoke, not in a language they recognized, but the meaning hit Rena's mind like nausea. Come, she staggered backwards so quickly she almost fell. Look, it's calling us. Dunley shook his head sharply. Don't listen. Don't react. But the creature moved closer, and the darkness behind them, blocking the staircase, began to swirl. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't a man. It was a second shadow, a mirror to the first. Waiting. Rena's pulse hammered. We're trapped. No, Dunley said suddenly. We have one place left. He turned to Lydia's metal door. The cell, he said. If it's reinforced, strong enough to hold her, maybe it can hold us too. Rena grabbed his arm. Mark, we don't know what's in there. And we know exactly what's out here. He shoved the sliding view slot open. Lydia, move back from the door now. Lydia obeyed, not out of trust, but terror. Dunley and Rena pushed against the metal handle. It resisted, then gave way with a shuddering metallic groan. The door swung open. The cell was small, suffocating, lit only by the officers' flashlights. Lydia cowered in the corner, hands over her ears. Close it, she screamed. Close it before he... A deep crack boomed through the corridor behind them. The creature was only feet away. Dunley shoved Rena into the cell and pulled Lydia with him. He grabbed the metal handle. Something cold brushed the back of his neck. He slammed the door. Something struck the other side with a heavy, wet thud. The entire metal frame shuddered. Rena backed away, dragging Lydia to the far wall. The creature struck again. The metal rattled. Dust rained from the ceiling. The hinges screeched under the pressure. Dunley braced his shoulder against the door. It's trying to break through. Rena grabbed his arm. Mark, you can't hold it. Help me. Together they leaned into the door as another blow shook the frame. Lydia pressed herself against the far corner, shaking uncontrollably. It's angry, she whispered. You closed the door. You never close the door once he's chosen. Rena snapped. Chosen who? Lydia's eyes lifted slowly, horrified. You. Before Rena could respond, A final, monstrous strike hit the metal, buckling the upper hinge. The ceiling cracked. The chamber lights flickered. Andrew's voice drifted through the door, distant and trembling. He only needs one more. The metal hinge snapped. The door bent inward. A long, black arm, wrongly jointed, impossibly thin, slid through the gap, reaching blindly into the cell. The officers stumbled back. Lydia screamed. The creature's arms scraped across the wall, searching, hunting, reaching for Rena. It brushed her shoulder. Her flashlight burst. And in total darkness, the creature whispered, "Found you." The black arm scraped across the cell door, cold and unnaturally heavy, leaving a wet streak along the metal. Rena yelped, stumbling backward, dragging Lydia with her. Dunley slammed his shoulder into the door again, bracing against the impossible weight pressing through the hinge. For a moment, everything paused. The only sounds were the shallow, ragged breaths of the three humans trapped inside, and the faint, wet scraping of something alive just beyond the door. Then the corridor exploded with movement. The shadow outside twisted, limbs stretching impossibly, folding in on themselves like broken reflections. It hissed, a sound that resonated deep in the chest and made every instinct in Dunley and Rena scream, "Run, or you're done." Rena pressed herself against the far wall, one hand covering Lydia's mouth to stifle a scream. "It's going to break through," she whispered. "We can't hold it." Dunley's jaw clenched. He scanned the cell, searching for anything at all, that could give them a fighting chance. His eyes fell on a small grate near the floor, partly hidden behind a stack of broken cardboard boxes. "Rena, the vent. If we can fit through, we can escape, maybe get above ground." Rena frowned. "The vent? Are you insane? That's barely a foot wide. We can't drag her through. Do you have a better idea?" Dunley snapped. His eyes flicked toward Lydia. The girl was pale, shaking, but nodding weakly at him, as if understanding they had no other choice. Lydia whispered, barely audible, "It can't reach the vent. Not completely. If you can move fast." Dunley didn't wait. He rushed to the vent, sliding the cover off with a clatter that echoed through the cell. The air that rushed out smelled damp, musty, and metallic, like earth and old blood mixed. He dropped to his knees and peered inside. The duct twisted upward, narrow and dark, but it seemed solid and climbable. A faint draft carried sounds of movement from above, scraping, hissing, and whispers that sent shivers crawling up their spines. Rena gritted her teeth. "We do this together. Now." One by one, they began to squeeze through the narrow vent. Rena went first, dragging Lydia behind her, then Dunley. The metal scraped painfully against their shoulders, and dust fell into their mouths. Every inch forward was a struggle, every turn threatening to trap them completely. But adrenaline and fear pushed them onward. Halfway through, the vent shifted slightly under Dunley's weight. From behind them, the creature slammed the metal door with a force that made the entire cell shudder. A low, wet growl reverberated through the walls, and something pressed against the vent from below, sliding along the ceiling like it was stretching its fingers to follow them. Dunley froze. "It's following us," Lydia whimpered. "It can't reach inside, not yet." Rena's flashlight, wedged against the metal, flickered wildly. Shadows danced along the vent walls. Then she saw it, briefly, a long, black shadow sliding along the floor below. It wasn't just limbs anymore. It had form, like smoke folded into arms, stretching, reaching, hungry. Her heart thumped so violently she could barely breathe. They crawled, inch by agonizing inch, until the vent twisted upward again, leading to a narrow maintenance hatch above. Dust fell from the ceiling above the hatch, and the sound of scraping below grew louder, angrier. Rena whispered, "Almost there, almost." Dunley reached the hatch first, then pulled Rena up, then helped Lydia through. She tumbled onto the wooden floor of the maintenance corridor, shaking uncontrollably. "Go!" Dunley shouted, dragging Lydia after him. They slammed the vent cover back into place just as a long, black tendril shot upward from below, hitting the metal with a clank. The air quivered with an unholy resonance. For a moment, they froze, hearts hammering. Then silence. The only sound, the ragged breathing of the three humans and the faint thrum of the church above. The maintenance corridor was narrow and smelled of mold and dust. Lights flickered on, revealing wooden beams and old pipes running overhead. The church's main sanctuary loomed above them, but from this vantage point, it was silent. Too silent. Dunley crouched behind a pipe, examining the floor. We can't stay here. The stairway to the main floor, it's too exposed. That thing's waiting. Rena's hands shook. Then what? We have to leave the building. Not yet. Dunley glanced around. Then he noticed the maintenance ladder leading up to a small trapdoor near the choir loft. If we get up there, we can access the balcony and maybe get a better view, plan our next move. Lydia whimpered. He'll know we're here, Dunley frowned. How? She pressed her hands together, whispering, the watches everything. When the first door opened, he woke up. He sees, even through walls. Rena's face went pale. Through walls? That's impossible. Not for him, Lydia said softly, shaking. Not for him. They climbed the ladder, one by one. Dunley reached the trapdoor first and pushed it open slowly. Dust cascaded down into the room below. The church loft above was empty, silent, but the faint echo of scraping and wet thuds below reminded them that nothing in that place was safe. Dunley peered over the edge. The main floor lay below. Everything looked normal, too normal. But he knew better. He could feel the presence, a pulsing awareness just beneath the floorboards, watching, waiting. Rena climbed up next, holding Lydia's hand to steady her. The girl's eyes darted nervously. Don't let him touch me, she whispered. He doesn't like to be watched, but he knows when you are. Dunley frowned. Knows? Knows how? Lydia shook her head, whispering, I don't know. I only know he's ancient. Older than the church. Older than the town. And he's hungry. They moved along the balcony, keeping to the shadows. Suddenly, a noise echoed from below, a soft, deliberate tapping. Someone, or something, was following them. Dunley froze. He's tracking us. Not with sound. Not with sight. He just knows where we are. Rena swallowed hard. Then why is he waiting? Lydia's face was pale, drawn. Because he wants us to see what he does next. He likes to play first, then devour. A scraping noise started again, louder this time. It wasn't coming from the direction of the cell. It was coming from the far end of the sanctuary, toward the altar. Dunley's eyes narrowed. That's where he wants us. Lydia's breathing hitched. No, that's the second door. Dunley and Rena exchanged a glance. Lydia whispered, it leads to the heart. The room beneath the sanctuary, the one behind the maintenance closet. He keeps them there. All of them. Waiting. Watching. Feeding. The hair on Rena's arms stood on end. Dunley's stomach churned. We have to see it. We have to know what he's guarding, or they are. Before he could finish, a low, resonant rumble echoed from below. The wooden floorboards creaked under pressure. The black tendrils of shadow burst upward through the sanctuary floor, snaking, curling, thrashing, like hungry snakes uncoiling toward the balcony. Rena screamed, dragging Lydia back. Dunley grabbed her arm. We can't stay here. We need to descend now. But as they looked down, a horrifying sight stopped them cold. The second door, hidden beneath the altar, was opening, slowly, and from it came a faint, sickly, pulsing light. Something alive, or something worse than alive, was moving within. Lydia gasped. They're awake. The air turned thick with heat and rot. A wet, scraping sound rolled upward from the room. And from inside, a voice whispered, faint but clear, welcome back. The balcony trembled slightly. The tendrils below wriggled faster, reaching, stretching. Rena whispered to Dunley, whatever's down there, it knows we're here. And it's ready. Dunley swallowed hard, heart hammering. We're not going to like what we see next. The pulsing light beneath the altar bathed the sanctuary in a sickly, greenish glow. The tendrils writhing from the floor hissed as though tasting the air, curling closer to the balcony where Dunley, Rena, and Lydia crouched. Their breaths came in panicked gasps. Every instinct screamed for them to flee. Yet they couldn't look away. Lydia whispered, voice trembling. "Of the heart of the church. That's where he keeps them. All of them. He collects them." Dunley frowned. "Collects? What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the light from the hidden room grew brighter. From the widening doorway, a shape emerged, slithering over the threshold. It was humanoid, but wrong. An exaggerated silhouette of human form stretched impossibly tall, with elongated fingers and a featureless, hollow face. Its body flickered, like smoke wrapped around bone. The thing was alive, but it wasn't fully alive. And in its grasp were figures, shadows of people, barely distinguishable, suspended as if trapped in thin air. Their eyes were wide, unseeing, mouths agape in silent screams. Dunley's stomach churned. "Holy!" Rena stifled a scream. "Andrew, Lydia, it's in there." Lydia's hands flew to her face. I tried to save them, but he's older than the church, older than this town. He feeds on the fear of those who witness him. He keeps them in the heart, alive, but changed." Dunley turned, eyes scanning for an escape route. The balcony ladder was flimsy. The tendrils below had begun to coil around the railing. There was nowhere to go. Nothing to fight with except their own courage. The shadow creature stepped forward, dragging the captured forms behind it. Its presence made the air vibrate, pressing down on lungs, hearts, and sanity. And then they heard it. A voice, not Andrew's, not Lydia's, but something layered, distorted, ancient. "Welcome to the heart of your curiosity. You asked to see, now you will." The things in its grasp moved subtly. One of the figures raised its head, Andrew Bell. His eyes were wide, glassy, and unseeing. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He was aware, but not free. Another figure, a woman, stirred slightly. Her hands scratched at the air. Lydia gasped. She's still alive." The thing tossed the figures into the room. They fell into the pulsing green light as if swallowed by it. Their forms distorted, bones elongating, skin stretching unnaturally. Their eyes, wide with terror, seemed to glimmer like faint stars trapped in ice. Dunley staggered backward, stomach heaving. "It transforms them," Rena whispered, clutching Lydia. What does it want?" Lydia's voice trembled. "It feeds on their fear, on the realization that nothing outside matters. That when you see it, when you witness it, you're already inside." The shadow creature turned toward the balcony. Its hollow gaze fell on them. It took a step forward, and the pulsing light from the hidden room seemed to stretch upward, bathing the sanctuary in a supernatural glow. The sound that rolled out of it was not a sound at all. It was a pressure, a weight that filled the brain with images of all the missing people, all the secret fears, all the moments of loneliness, guilt, and terror the town had buried for decades. Rena screamed. Dunley's knees buckled. Lydia gasped. "You have to shut it out, or it'll..." The words barely left her lips before a tendril shot upward, faster than their eyes could track. It whipped toward the balcony, striking the railing. The metal twisted with a screech, forcing Dunley to brace himself against the sudden impact. The creature's hand, or what resembled a hand, reached through the gap. It stretched impossibly, aiming directly for them. Its presence was suffocating. The very air around them trembled. Dunley's eyes landed on the vent cover beneath the altar, their escape route. But the crawl space below was no longer safe. The creature could reach into it, feel the air, sense movement. It could anticipate their actions. Rena whispered, trembling, "What? To threat." Dunley shook his head. "No, there's always a choice." He scanned the balcony again. His eyes fell on the trapdoor above the choir loft. A faint glimmer suggested it led to the roof. The only way to survive was to reach it, exposed, yes, but moving fast enough to outrun the creature's perception. "Lydia!" Dunley shouted. "Can you climb? Up to the roof?" The girl nodded weakly. "Yes, but he'll know. He always knows." Then we move faster than he expects. The three of them sprinted along the balcony, adrenaline pushing them beyond reason. The creature didn't chase it. Instead, it paused, head tilted as if calculating their movements. Its shadow stretched unnaturally, slithering along walls and floorboards like a predator studying prey. They reached the trapdoor, yanking it open. Dust rained down from the attic above. Wooden beams groaned. Dunley and Rena helped Lydia through first. Then Dunley climbed, pulling himself up. Rena followed, dragging her shaking hands along the ceiling beams to the hatch. They emerged into the attic, dimly lit, cluttered with old boxes and church relics. The air was stale but breathable. For a moment, hope flickered. But then, from below, a sound rolled upward. A long, wet slithering, followed by a voice, Andrew's voice, distorted, multiple layers overlapping. "You shouldn't have seen him. You shouldn't have opened the door." Rena froze, heart hammering. Dunley turned, hand instinctively reaching for the flashlight. The roof hatch loomed ahead, a possible escape, but the attic itself seemed to quiver. Shadows pooled along the floorboards, stretching unnaturally. Something moved beneath them, something aware. A tendril of blackness surged upward through a crack in the attic floorboards. Lydia screamed, "He can reach us here. Don't stop moving." Dunley grabbed her hand. "Now." They sprinted toward the ladder leading to the church roof. The attic groaned with every step. Dust fell, wood splintered. Something lunged through the floorboards below, a black, writhing mass that smashed into the beams and almost toppled Rena over. Adrenaline made them stronger, faster. Dunley hauled himself up the ladder. Rena followed, helping Lydia climb. The moment all three were on the roof, they collapsed, gasping for air. Below them, the roof shuddered. A part of the attic floor tore free, and the black tendrils exploded upward, grasping at empty air. The shadow creature emerged partially, its upper torso reaching from the floor, head cocked unnaturally, hollow eyes locked on the humans. And then it spoke again, a voice older than time, colder than stone. "The heart is mine. All of them belong to me. And you will join them if you cannot run." Dunley swallowed hard. "We're running." Rena nodded, eyes wide. "Straight to the street. Don't stop." They sprinted across the uneven shingles, the night air cold and biting. Behind them, the church seemed alive, groaning, cracking, vibrating with a malevolent intent. The last thing they heard before reaching the edge of the roof, a whisper, soft but unmistakable. "I've been waiting for you." They leaped from the roof, landing hard in the churchyard, rolling to break the fall. The black tendrils lashed out, but the roof had given them just enough distance. They ran toward the edge of the churchyard, hearts pounding. And then Dunley stumbled on something in the dirt. A small, leather-bound notebook. It was Lydia's. He opened it, flipping frantically to the last entry. "If anyone reads this, do not follow the door. He waits there. He is older than you think. He chooses." Rena grabbed his shoulder. "Mark, what do we do now?" Before he could answer, the night air shifted. A whisper came from the shadows surrounding the churchyard. "You can run, but you cannot hide." Behind them, the church pulsed with an unnatural light, and from the main entrance, the hollow eyes of the thing, he glimmered. Dunley looked at Lydia, pale and trembling. "We survived tonight, but the heart, it isn't finished. And neither is he." They froze, realizing that what had begun in the sanctuary would follow them beyond the church, and possibly beyond the town itself. The camera of fate lingers on the church, pulsing faintly in the darkness. Within the cracked floorboards, faint scratching continues, as if someone, or something, is digging deeper, preparing the heart for the next visitor. And in the last corner of the yard, unnoticed by the trio, a shadow stirs, waiting, watching, patient, immortal. The heart is never empty. If you enjoy immersive horror stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Hidden Motives for more dark mysteries and unsettling tales.